Now, today on World Day of Social Justice, a critical question confronts societies across Africa and beyond. Why, despite decades of democracy and development promises, do inequality and exclusion remain so deeply entrenched? Later today, the Center for Social Justice at Stellenbosch University will host its seventh annual Social Justice Lecture, bringing together global and African leadership to reflect on how to build societies where rights, dignity, and opportunity are truly shared. Delivering this year's address is the Right Honourable Baroness Valerie Amos, former United Nations humanitarian chief and one of the world's most respected voices on equity, conflict, and global leadership. Baroness Amos joins us now. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, and welcome, Baroness.
Good morning, and thank you.
Baroness, on World Day of Social Justice, many across Africa would argue that language of justice is well established, but delivery remains what is elusive. And in practical terms, what does social justice actually require from governments today, in your view?
So I absolutely agree that delivering on social justice has been a real challenge globally. And we are at a time now where we are seeing widening inequality across so many countries in the world. And I think what we need to see from governments is a renewed commitment to a rights-based approach to policy and a renewed commitment to tackling poverty in their countries. For too long, there has been an assumption that as countries become richer, that they will pull those who are poorer out of poverty. In statistical terms, that seems right, a kind of trickle-down approach. But in real terms, in terms of the difference it makes to people's day-to-day lives, that is not happening. Look at a country like South Africa, which is becoming richer, but where inequalities are widening. So you really need concerted effort, policies that governments are promoting to tackle that inequality.
So you've worked at the highest levels at the United Nations and in some of the world's most fragile contexts. Where do you believe that governments most often fail? Is it political will? Is it institutional weakness, corruption, or a deeper disconnect maybe just with the citizens?
It's a combination of factors. And one of the things that I want to talk about tonight is not just about national governments. There is a global context here. We have an international framework of rights and laws which are not being applied in the way that they should. The accountability mechanisms that exist are not being adhered to, so that what is happening globally is also having an impact on countries nationally. And you can have deep divisions and differences in countries where you can see some progress in one area and countries going backwards in another area. So this is not consistent at all. And I've been very proud to see that the role that South Africa, for example, is playing globally in holding other countries to account. Think about what South Africa is doing in relation to the Gaza conflict, for example, and its challenge to Israel. That is so important for the world and for the people of the world. And yet you will have South Africans who will point to what is happening to them nationally and will be seeking government policies that will help them in relation to areas like housing, healthcare, employment. So it's a very challenging and complex picture.
I think you've partly answered my next question, which is what you're going to be talking about tonight. But maybe you can share with us some of the other themes that you want to explore in your lecture today.
I also want to explore what is happening in conflict zones across the world. and the importance of countries really seeking peace and prosperity in those countries. When I was at the United Nations, I was responsible for humanitarian affairs. I saw firsthand the impact of conflict. Day after day, I heard people asking the question, why has the world forgotten us? Let's not forget, there are some significant conflicts on this continent. I think Sudan, for example, would seem to be forgotten in so many parts of the world. So I'm talking about conflict, I'm talking about poverty, and I'm talking about rights.
So Africa is the youngest continent in the world, and I guess we have to make sure that social justice frameworks are not designed for young people, but genuinely shaped by them. How can we do this?
Well, South Africa has a great example of this. If you think about all of those years ago when the South African Constitution was created, it was a process of bringing people together. And I think making sure that we listen to the voices of young people. And South Africa is both an important player on the global stage. It's also an important player on the African stage, as well as being important to the people who live and work here, its citizens. So including young people in those conversations about the future shape of the country, about the priorities, is important. Obviously, you have a parliament, but making sure that young people's voices are heard through youth fora, for example, talking about critical issues that affect them will be important.
You've spoken about the dangers of deepening political and social polarization globally. How can leaders engage opponents constructively without appearing to dilute their principles, especially in societies that are already fractured along race, class, or even ethnic lines?
Well, I'm from the United Kingdom, and we're seeing in the United Kingdom, in Europe, but also if you look over to the United States, a real fragmentation and polarization happening, deepening divisions between people, which are exacerbated by what they are reading on social media. And engagement here is important. I mean, what I see are leaders who are coming out with very easy, snappy one-liners, which appear to speak to people's concerns, but do not. There is not a genuine platform on which those leaders are engaging, where there is a debate about the differences in policy approaches and what that means for the country. I'm particularly concerned in the United Kingdom that we have a debate which is othering people who come from different backgrounds, which is othering people who are refugees or asylum seekers, rather than us talking about why across the world issues of migration, for example, have become so pertinent and why people are moving. I myself arrived in the United Kingdom aged 9, so I am an immigrant, and yet I am deeply rooted in the history of our country, in the sense of I come from Guyana, a country which was colonized, and prior to that, of course, my ancestors would have been taken from the African continent to South America as a result of the slave trade. So we have deep interconnections here in terms of history, in terms of colonialism, in terms of imperialism, as countries that are coming out and have come out of that history. We need to talk about it. Our young people need to appreciate and understand that history, to understand the present, and to help them to shape the future.
Across conflict zones, and I'm thinking from Sudan, parts of the Sahel and eastern DRC, we see disproportionate impacts of violence on women and children. And you've warned that solutions will fail when women are not around the table. What then must change to move women from symbolic presence to real decision-making power?
I'd like to preface my answer to that by saying one of the things that I am deeply worried about is the way that women and girls are used by armed groups. They're used by armies and others as a means through rape and violence to demonstrate power and victory over their opponents. There is something deeply, deeply concerning here that we have to address and have to tackle. We have to talk about it, and we have to make sure that no armed group, no army can act with impunity in relation to these matters. Women's rights are as important as the rights of everyone else in a country, including in a time of conflict. With respect to peace processes are about bringing countries out of conflict into stability and making sure that everyone in that country is included in that process, including enemies. Women are a significant part of any country. Indeed, they are a majority around the world. That means they have to be around the peace table. They have to be around the peace table in a way where their voices are heard and where their contributions are respected. Too often, it's a bolt-on. It is about those who have been involved in the conflict being on two sides of the same table, and those who have been working for peace being left out. You talked about Sudan. We've seen over many years different stages of trying to bring peace to that troubled country. And we saw many years ago women being at the heart of some of the protests about the issues that they were concerned about in Sudan. So women are at the heart of this. They have to be integrated into peace processes. And I think it makes a very, very big difference when they are around that peace table, because they are thinking about the future, they're thinking about children, they're thinking about healthcare and education, and the frameworks that will help to deliver that equity and equality going forward.
In humanitarian crises, we're seeing funding shrinking whilst needs are growing. And I wonder if the current international aid system is working, or does it need fundamental reform?
Well, given what is happening around the world, and we have seen many countries in the West, for example, cut back on their aid, including in Europe, the United States, so there is simply less money around. But the other thing that I think is important to remember, that particularly where you're talking about national disasters rather than conflict areas, it is the people in those countries who are at the sharp end of the natural disasters who are the first responders. They are the ones who are there helping their neighbors, trying to rebuild their communities even before international responders arrive. So how we support people at the sharp end, how governments look at issues around preparedness, for example, are absolutely crucial. In terms of conflict, the issues are a little different. In terms of issues around, for example, famine, again, it's a little different because you're looking to the international community to help to support national governments either to bring a conflict to an end or to bring a famine to an end. And we need that international support. We need that money. And in the current context, we do need to look at how we can reform the international system and the funding of that system to enable humanitarian support to continue to those who need it. We're seeing crises across the world. They are proliferating in some parts of the world, and we need to support governments and the people on the ground to help to come out of those humanitarian crises. So yes, reform is important.
Social justice is often framed in moral terms, but is there also a hard economic argument that societies ignoring inequality ultimately undermine their own stability and growth?
So if you think about that combination of rights and justice, very often people think about it as human rights are about the individual, social justice is about the collective. And yes, economic realities are an important part of that. By bringing people into the economy in a way that helps them to contribute to the economies in their communities and in their countries, you're helping to grow the prosperity of those countries, which means that you then have resources which can be put into areas like housing, education, and healthcare. So it is in many ways, you can describe it as a virtual circle. And yes, economic prosperity is an important element of that.
If you're speaking to the African Union, authorities, bodies like that, what would your message be to them today?
So I think there would be three messages I would put to the African Union. One, and we touched on this earlier, which is this is a continent with a huge number of young people. This is the continent's and the world's futures. So how we support countries to support those young people is absolutely critical. Secondly, how can we across the continent work together to end the conflicts that we are seeing across the continent? And indeed, the areas where you're seeing a proliferation of non-armed armed state actors. The Sahel is one example that you mentioned. How can we bring security and stability to those parts of the continent? And the third thing I would say is remember the young people. They are our future.
Baroness Amos, thank you so much indeed for your time and sharing these very important messages with us on such an important day, the World Day of Social Justice. Thank you so much indeed for your time, and good luck with your lecture later on today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That was the Right Honourable Baroness Amos, Valerie Amos, one of the United Kingdom's most distinguished public servants and global humanitarian leaders, who'll be delivering a social day, Day of Social Justice message later on today at in the Western Cape at Stellenbosch University. And yeah, she was sharing some very important messages about today and what it might mean and what we need to be doing actually across the continent, given also that we are the youngest continent on the planet, that a lot of this needs to be for young people. And some of the issues that need to be addressed are inequality and finding ways to deliver. Okay, so that is Baroness Amos talking to us about Social Justice Day, and she'll be delivering the 7th annual Social Justice Lecture today with the spotlight on social justice, as I said.